As the 2023 BRICS Summit draws nearer, there is a likelihood that Saudi Arabia will be granted membership into the bloc. African President Cyril Ramaphosa originally announced the kingdom's desire to join the bloc after returning from an official visit to Riyadh in mid-October 2022, where he met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The BRICS countries account for almost 42% of the world's population, 27% of land area, and 32% of global GDP. South Africa will host the BRICS Summit in 2023, where the question of the multilateral group's enlargement, including the admission of Saudi Arabia, is scheduled to be debated. Turkey, Egypt, Argentina, and Iran are among the nations that have expressed interest in joining the organization. According to Al-Ansari, it makes perfect sense for Saudi Arabia, the Arab region's largest economy, to investigate the possibility of joining an expanded BRICS. Now, with such a lofty desire, how will Saudi Arabia's membership in BRICS affect the global balance of power? Will this move tip the scales of power and elevate Saudi Arabia to the status of world power? Stay tuned to find out. Remember to like the video if you're enjoying our content, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay connected. What is BRICS? The BRICS alliance is made up of the world's 5 main developing economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Most people underestimate it since it contains emerging economies rather than established ones like the G7. These 5 countries account for 41% of the global population and have a combined GDP of more than $24.4 trillion. They also have significant military capabilities and growing political influence in the global sphere. By banding together, this group commands a voice for itself in the global sphere. For example, it helps them voice concerns about emerging economies whenever the West implements policies that are explicitly beneficial to itself. The carbon tax is a famous example of this. The European Union frequently complains about the carbon emissions produced by steel factories in India and China. Because their sectors are transitioning to sustainable energy, they are now imposing a carbon tax. So when Indian and Chinese steel reaches the global market in 2030, Indian products will face fines simply because they emit more carbon than these industrialized countries. Nonetheless, rich countries have produced so much carbon throughout their growth period that they are principally responsible for climate change. However, they've ignored the past and now impose a price on carbon emissions, whereas poor countries require economic fuel to thrive. So why the sudden interest of Saudi Arabia in BRICS? The Russian-Ukraine conflict has accelerated a global push to construct an alternative economic and financial universe to the current one. There is the possibility of Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which accounts for 41% of the world's population. These countries also account for 23% of worldwide GDP and 18% of global commerce, demonstrating their importance to the global economy as a whole. Saudi Arabia recently applied to join the organization, and current members gladly welcome them. There are also discussions of the UAE and Turkey joining, which would result in a significant shift in the world economy. The possible accession of these 3 countries represents a significant shift that will tip the balance in favor of the East. Saudi Arabia, with its enormous energy potential, the UAE as a global commercial and financial center, and Turkey with its location, industrial, and technological growth, will all contribute significantly to the group's influence and redistribute power between East and West. By creating a powerful economic and political bloc that rivals the West and its allies, the alliance will, analysts claim, achieve its primary goal of creating a bipolar world, as was declared in 2006. The alliance would benefit from Saudi Arabia's entry, given its influence in politics and the economy, especially considering the country's goal of maintaining harmonious relations with other countries across the world. Now, what are the possible implications of Saudi Arabia joining BRICS? If BRICS agrees to expand its membership to include Saudi Arabia, the first step will be to halt petrodollar recycling. Saudi Arabia selling oil gives the US a $7 trillion advantage, which may lead to a bilateral currency exchange deal and enrich the BRICS countries. Particularly, India and China would not have to buy oil in dollars, resulting in the collapse of the American economy, skyrocketing bank interest rates in the US, and a tragedy. The United States will suffer a huge hit since China alone holds $1 trillion in US Treasury bonds. Without purchasing oil in dollars, the Chinese may sell those bonds, causing a hole in the American economy. Therefore, even if China simply withdraws its Treasury bonds, the US will have $1 trillion in bonds that cost less. President Putin, on the other hand, has proclaimed the development of a new international currency known as the BRICS currency, which will be tremendously beneficial to India, China, and Russia. Furthermore, China has already perfected the bridge prototype, an alternate international payment network. This is only an alternative to SWIFT for international transactions involving central bank digital money. This groundbreaking initiative is being carried out in partnership with the Hong Kong Centre's BIS Innovation Hub, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the Bank of Thailand, and the People's Bank of China's Digital Currency Institute. According to Putin's proclamation, the BRICS currency will work as a basket holding the value of 5 BRICS currencies: the Chinese renminbi, the Russian ruble, the Indian rupee, the Brazilian real, and the South African rand. This basket would make it semi-decentralized and more stable than the US dollar, and analysts believe it could be gold-backed, adding even more strength and stability. If BRICS is successful in creating its own currency for the first time in 50 years, we could once again have a currency backed by gold, which would almost immediately make it the most valuable money on earth. If Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, gold and oil will be the foundations for the bloc. Only President Putin knows how this BRICS currency will emerge and function as an international currency. Because of this, everyone on earth is interested in what Saudi Arabia does and how BRICS will alter the global order. Prior to Algeria formally submitting its request in early December 2022, China sought advice from representatives of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt, all of which are seen as potential BRICS members. China adopted a clear policy at the most recent BRICS Summit to support BRICS growth. By creating a powerful economic and political bloc that rivals the West and its allies, the alliance, analysts claim, achieves its primary goal of creating a bipolar world, as was declared in 2006. The organization anticipates that its forthcoming summit in South Africa next year will be the most significant in the group's history, since it may see the simultaneous admission of several nations. Turkey and Indonesia have also shown significant interest in joining the group, in addition to the 3 Arab nations. Now let us hear from you in the comments section. Will Saudi Arabia's addition to the BRICS bloc tip the scales of power to the disfavor of Western alliances? Will Saudi Arabia be granted membership into the bloc? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. And that's where we wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed the video, then please like and subscribe for more. Don't forget,